I never thought my best friend of 18 years would try to destroy my marriage. But here we are. Let me back up. I'm 29, my husband is 31, and we have a 2-year-old. I moved to this country when I was 11, and my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, introduced me to Sarah. We became inseparable. For 18 years, she was my person. We shared everything. Our families blended. My brother ended up marrying her. Yeah, Sarah is my sister-in-law twice over. We were that close. I work in an office from 9 to 2 most days, with a 30-minute break I usually use to grab a second breakfast or walk 5 minutes to my husband's office. Sometimes I have to travel for work. It's not a big deal. I'd mention it to Sarah casually, like, oh, I've got to go to the next city on Wednesday, and she'd nod and we'd move on. Last week I had a work trip planned for Wednesday, but Tuesday night a red alert came through about the weather. Severe flooding warnings. My work thing got canceled. So Wednesday morning, I stayed home with our 2-year-old. My husband left at 6 in the morning to go shut down his business and set up flood protection. By 7:30, he was back home making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We didn't go out until Friday, just us and our kids safe at home. At 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Sarah texted me, "Are you home already? It's flooding where you were traveling." I texted back, "Home safe," that was it. Saturday morning, we went to our usual gym class together. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "We need to talk in private." We sat in my car and she took a deep breath. "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I froze. My blood went cold, but then something clicked. I remembered that I had been working from home with my husband and my baby for 2 days. I realized she was lying, but I didn't understand why. I asked her 3 times, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She confirmed it 3 times. I asked what time. She said around 11 a.m. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was 100% sure, and she launched into this whole description. My husband making out with a gorgeous Barbie lookalike blonde in the car, my kid in the back seat, the whole thing. I didn't scream, I just said, "I was home all day Wednesday with my husband and my daughter. He made us breakfast. We watched movies. He didn't leave." Her face went white. She stumbled over her words. "Oh, maybe it was Tuesday." "No," I said. "Tuesday we were both at work, and you said Wednesday 3 times." She started crying. "I'm so sorry. I'm so stressed. My marriage is falling apart. I don't know why I said that." I didn't say much. I just said I needed to process this and went home. When I told my husband, he was furious, not at me, at her. He wanted to confront her right then. I told him to wait. I needed to think. I couldn't sleep that night. 18 years of friendship, and she tried to blow up my marriage with a lie. Why? What did she gain? Was she jealous? Did she want me single? Did she want my husband? The next day I called her. I asked her straight, "Why did you lie about my husband cheating?" She started crying again. "I don't know. I'm so sorry. I've been so stressed. My husband and I are having problems. I guess I just wanted someone else to feel as miserable as me." That was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry. She was making excuses. She was blaming her own marriage problems for trying to destroy mine. She didn't even apologize to my husband. She just wanted me to forgive her and move on. I didn't. I told my brother, her husband, what happened. He was shocked. He said she'd been acting strange lately, but he didn't think she'd do something like this. They started marriage counseling, but honestly, I don't know if it's going to save them. She's been lying to him too about little things. Maybe this was just the biggest lie. My husband's family found out. My mother-in-law called Sarah and told her she was banned from any family events until she got professional help. That stung Sarah, I think. She loved being part of the family. I blocked her on everything. I told mutual friends what happened. Some took her side, said I was overreacting, that she was just going through a hard time, but I don't care. If she could invent a whole affair to make me miserable, what else is she capable of? I still don't know why she did. Maybe she wanted me to divorce my husband so I'd have more time to hang out with her. Or travel together as single moms. That's what my husband thinks. He said she wants you to be as unhappy as she is. And maybe he's right. But the hardest part is the betrayal. I trusted her with everything. I told her my deepest secrets. She was at my wedding. She held my baby. And then she tried to take it all away with a lie. I'm still processing. My marriage is stronger than ever. My husband and I talk about it openly. We laugh about how ridiculous the accusation was because we literally spent the whole day together. But underneath the laughter, there's a sadness I can't shake. A hole where my best friend used to be. I don't know if I'll ever get closure. She hasn't reached out again. Maybe she's too ashamed. Or maybe she's already moved on to a new target. But I know one thing, I'll never trust her again. And I'll never let anyone that close without making sure they actually want the best for me. Because sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who want to watch you fall. Moving on to another story that I never thought I'd be telling. This one cuts deep because it was 9 years. 9 years of my life I gave to someone who, in the end, saw me as nothing more than a placeholder. I was 27 when it all ended. He was 26. We'd been together since high school. I met Nate when I was 18, right after graduation, and for 9 years he was my entire world. I don't say that lightly. I mean, I literally structured my whole life around him. When he fell into depression, I was there. When his parents disowned him for 3 years because they didn't agree with his college major, I worked 2 jobs so he could focus on school. I was also a college student at the time, but that didn't matter. What mattered was him. He was going to be something great, and I was going to help him get there. When his parents finally started talking to him again and began supporting him financially, we moved into a new apartment. Nate sat me down and said he wanted me to quit my job. It's my turn to take care of you, he said. I didn't quit. Something inside me held back. I'm glad it did. For 16 months, everything was perfect. He spoiled me. He took me on dates. He made me feel like I was the center of his universe. But then things started shifting. He made new friends at his new school, and slowly he became more interested in them than in me. He'd ignore my texts for hours. He'd come home late and act like it was no big deal. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking. Then December came. He did a complete 180. He love-bombed me like nothing I'd ever experienced. He planned an entire magical Christmas. He bought me gifts that were thoughtful and expensive. He took me to see lights, had dinners planned, made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. I honestly believed he was going to propose on January 2nd. That night he made my favorite dinner, steak, mashed potatoes, asparagus, the whole deal. He lit candles. He made a speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since high school, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. I kept thinking any minute now he's going to pull out a ring, any minute now, but he didn't. As his speech went on, my world fell apart. He was trying to sugarcoat it, but I could hear the words underneath. You were a good girlfriend, he said. But that's what you'll always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife. I don't see you as the mother of my children. I think we want different things. I didn't scream. I just sat there staring at the uneaten steak on my plate. 9 years of my life, 2 jobs, his depression, his parents' rejection, his success, all of it, and he was telling me I wasn't wife material, that I was good enough to support him, to love him, to work myself to exhaustion for him, but not good enough to marry. I moved out within a week. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't breathe in that apartment. I found a tiny studio and started piecing my life back together. It was hard. I cried every day for months. I questioned everything about myself. Was I not pretty enough, not ambitious enough? What did she have that I didn't? That's the thing. There was a she. I found out later through mutual friends. Nate had been talking to a coworker for months. He'd been emotionally cheating, maybe physically too, during that whole December love bombing period. He'd broken up with me to pursue her. He dumped me on January 2nd because he thought he'd spend New Year's with her and then start their life together. But here's where it gets funny. She didn't even like him. When he confessed to her, told her he'd ended a 9-year relationship to be with her, she called him a piece of trash. She told him if he ever spoke to her again, she'd report him to HR. She said she'd never given him any encouragement. He'd built this whole fantasy in his head, so he was left with nothing. No me, no her, just the wreckage of everything he destroyed. For months, I heard nothing. I blocked him on everything, but he found ways. He'd send emails from new accounts. He'd have friends pass messages. I ignored all of it. Then 7 days ago, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was him. Hey, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I need to get something off my chest. Can we meet just for coffee, please? I stared at that message for an hour. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to respond with every curse word I knew. But another part, the part that still had questions, wanted to hear what he had to say. I didn't respond, not yet. A friend told me what he'd been doing. He'd been stalking the coworker. Not in a violent way, but he'd show up at her coffee shop, at her gym, at places he knew she'd be. She got a restraining order. His parents found out and were furious. He lost friends. He was alone. And now he wanted to talk to me. I thought about it for days. What could he possibly have to get off his chest? An apology, an explanation? Did he want me back? Did he think I'd be waiting with open arms after he broke me into pieces? I decided not to meet him. I texted back, I don't want to see you. Say what you need to say here. He responded almost immediately. I'm sorry, I know that's not enough. I was stupid. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I thought the grass was greener. It's not. I see that now. I see that you were everything I needed. I just didn't know how to appreciate it. I didn't respond. He texted again. I know you're with someone else now. I heard. I'm happy for you. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong. You were wife material. You always were. I was the one who wasn't husband material. That last part made me angry. Not because he was wrong, he was right, but because it felt like he was trying to absolve himself. Like saying I'm the bad guy was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't. I blocked that number too. I don't know if I'll ever get closure from him, but I don't need it. I'm moving forward. I'm dating someone who actually sees me as a partner, not a stepping stone. And when I think about those 9 years, I don't feel sad anymore. I feel angry, but that anger is fading. He wanted to be with someone else. He got what he wanted, and now he's alone. Karma doesn't always come fast, but it came for him. Let me tell you about something else that happened recently. This one involves my family, and honestly, it's so twisted I still can't believe it's real. My fiance's ex is now married to my older brother. Yeah, I know it sounds like a soap opera, but I swear it's real. I'm 27, my fiancé is George, 38, my brother is David, 41, and my sister-in-law is Ella, 34. George dated Ella about 4 years ago for only 6 months. Ella wanted to get married and have kids, but George didn't want that with her. He was going through a rough patch back then, partying, doing drugs, not being the most reliable person. They ended in drama because she couldn't make him settle down with her. Then, within a year of their breakup, she met my brother David and they got married. Yeah, they moved fast. She went from dating George to breaking up, meeting David, and marrying him in about 14 months. I had no idea George was Ella's ex when I met him 2 years ago. We clicked immediately. He was honest about his past from the start. He told me he'd been a mess, but he was working on himself, and I saw that. He quit drinking and doing drugs cold turkey. He started therapy. He became a completely new person. I was with him through his entire healing journey. I'm so proud of him. But when Ella found out I was dating George and that he was serious about me, she lost it. She was furious. She started spreading lies. She told everyone that George was grooming me. I was 25 when we started dating. He was 36. That's not grooming. She said he was abusing me. She said he was trying to turn me into an addict. All of it was false. Complete fabrications. My brother David was caught in the middle. He didn't know what to believe. He and I had always been close, but Ella was his wife. He tried to stay neutral, but you can't stay neutral when someone is lying about your sister. Then George proposed to me. It was beautiful, private, and perfect. But when Ella found out, she exploded. She went to my parents and told them that George was only proposing to hurt her, that he was still in love with her, that I was just a rebound. My parents didn't believe her. They'd seen how George treated me. They knew he was serious. At a family dinner, she confronted me in front of everyone. She screamed that I'd stolen her life, that I was a homewrecker, that George was supposed to marry her, not me. I didn't scream back. I just said, Ella, he broke up with you 4 years ago. He didn't want to marry you then. He wants to marry me now. That's not my fault. My brother David finally stood up. He told her to stop. She turned on him, accusing him of choosing me over her. It was a mess. After that night, my parents told her she wasn't welcome at family events until she got help. She's been banned from holidays, birthdays, everything. My brother is still married to her, but I think it's only a matter of time. She still believes I ruined her life. But I didn't. I just found happiness with someone she couldn't keep. And instead of being happy for me, she decided to tear me down. That's the thing about people who blame everyone else. They never look in the mirror. It's always someone else's fault. The best friend who lies about your husband, the ex who can't handle being rejected, the sister-in-law who can't accept that you moved on. They all think they're the victim, but they're not. They're the ones who chose to destroy relationships instead of building their own. Take my best friend Sarah, for example. I thought I knew her. I'd known her since I was 11, fresh off a plane from my home country, confused and scared. She was introduced to me by my sister-in-law and we clicked immediately. We grew up together in this new country, went through middle school and high school, shared secrets, dreamed about the future. I was there when she got her first heartbreak. She was there when I lost my grandma. We were supposed to be sisters, not just friends. Then I met my husband, and I thought she was happy for me. She was at my wedding, smiling, throwing confetti. She held my baby at the hospital 2 years ago and cried happy tears. So when she pulled me aside after our Saturday gym class last week, I didn't think anything was wrong. She said she needed to talk in private, so we sat in my car in the parking lot, the engine off, sweat still cooling on our skin. She took a deep breath. On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out, and your kid was in the car. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just stared at her, my brain trying to process words that made no sense. Wednesday. Wednesday was the day the red alert came in for flooding. My work trip had been canceled the night before because of the weather. I stayed home with our 2-year-old. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to close up his business and put up flood barriers, and by 7:30 he was back. He made breakfast. We spent the whole day in pajamas watching cartoons, waiting for the rain that didn't start until 1 in the afternoon. He never left. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She confirmed it 3 times. She gave me a time, about 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. Yes, she said. I asked if she was 100% certain and she launched into a description. My husband kissing a gorgeous blonde at a cafe, our baby in the back seat of the car parked right there. That's impossible, I said. My voice was calm, but my hands were shaking. Because Wednesday I was home with him all day. I never went to work. The trip was canceled. She went pale. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She said maybe she'd gotten the day wrong. Maybe it was another day. But I knew the only other day he'd been out that week was Tuesday, and he was with his business partner until late. I checked. I texted the business partner. He confirmed. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked her why. Why would she make that up? She started crying. She said she didn't know. She said she'd been feeling distant from me lately, like I was always busy with my husband and my kid. She said she just wanted to spend more time with me, and she thought if I was single, we could travel together, go out, be like we used to be. She thought I'd divorce him and then she'd have her best friend back. I sat there in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, trying to understand. She had a whole story ready. She deplanned it. She waited for the right moment to drop this bomb. She thought I'd believe her. She thought I'd throw away my marriage because she was lonely. I didn't scream. I told her to get out of my car. She begged me to forgive her. She said she'd been seeing a therapist, that she knew it was wrong, that she didn't mean it, but she meant it. She meant every word. She just didn't think I'd check. I went home and told my husband everything. He was furious, not at me, at her. He said he'd never trusted her fully, that she always made comments about how much time I spent with him, how I'd changed. I had noticed it too, but I wrote it off as her missing me. Now I saw it for what it was: jealousy, pure selfish jealousy. I cut her off. I blocked her number, blocked her on social media. I told our mutual friends what she did. Some of them didn't believe me at first because Sarah was always the sweet one, the supportive one, but I showed them the texts. I showed them the timeline. She had texted me that Wednesday afternoon asking if I was home yet from my canceled trip, and I'd said home safe. She knew I was home. She knew I was with him. She still made up that lie. Now I don't have a best friend. I have a husband who I trust completely and a kid who doesn't know about any of this. But sometimes I lie awake at night wondering how someone who was supposed to love me could want to destroy my happiness. She didn't just try to sabotage my marriage. She tried to destroy my family. And for what? So we could go to happy hour like we were in our 20s. She blamed me, of course. She sent a message through a mutual friend saying I was cold, that I'd pushed her away, that I never made time for her. She made herself the victim. That's the pattern with people like her. They can't face the mirror. They can't say I was wrong. So they twist the story until they're the one who got hurt. I haven't spoken to her since that Saturday. And I don't plan to. Some bridges burn so completely that you don't even want to rebuild. You just let the ashes settle and walk away. That's where I am, still standing, still married, still raising my kid. And Sarah, she's out there probably telling someone else that I'm the bad guy, but I know the truth and that's enough. Then there was my ex, Nate. We were together for 9 years. 9 years of my life from when I was 18 to 27. I thought I knew him better than anyone. I helped him through depression, worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents cut him off over his major. I was a college student too, pulling all-nighters and picking up extra shifts, and I never complained because I loved him. I believed in him. When his parents finally started talking to him again and helped us get a new apartment, he said he wanted me to quit my job, said it was his turn to take care of me. I didn't quit. I kept my job because something in my gut told me not to, but for about 16 months everything felt perfect. He spoiled me, we were happy. Then he started changing. He made new friends at his new job and he'd get this faraway look when he talked about them. He ignored me more and more. I'd ask him to watch a movie with me and he'd say he was tired. I'd cook his favorite dinner and he'd eat it in silence while scrolling his phone. I told myself it was stress. I told myself to be patient. Then December came, he did a complete 180. He love-bombed me like I'd never experienced. He planned this magical Christmas, bought me gifts I'd mentioned once, took me to see the lights downtown, cooked me breakfast in bed. I honestly thought he was going to propose on January 2nd. He made my favorite dinner that night, sat me down at the table with candles and wine, and gave this long speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since high school, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. My heart was pounding. I kept thinking any minute now he's going to get down on one knee, but he didn't. His speech kept going and then it turned. He said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's what you'll always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife." He said he needed to find himself. He said he felt trapped. He said he was sorry, but he had to end things. 9 years and he ended it over candlelit dinner like it was a business meeting. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the wine going warm in my glass, and nodded like I understood. I didn't understand anything. I moved out within the week. I cried for months. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep. My friends told me I was better off, but I didn't feel better. I felt hollow. I kept replaying that speech, wondering what I'd done wrong. I'd given him everything. I'd put his dreams ahead of mine, and he still said I wasn't enough. Then in April, he texted me, out of nowhere. He said he needed to get something off his chest, that he wanted to meet and talk. I almost deleted the message. But curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my new apartment, the one he used to take me to on Sundays. I thought maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe he realized he made a mistake. I got there early. He showed up late, looking nervous. He sat down across from me, didn't even order a drink, and started talking. He told me that the real reason he dumped me was because he'd fallen in love with a coworker, a woman named Cassie. He said he'd been chasing her for months, that he ended things with me because he thought she was the one, that he'd been building up the courage to ask her out right after we broke up. I felt like I'd been punched. He didn't break up with me because of me. He broke up with me because he thought he could trade up. And he'd kept it secret for 3 months, letting me think it was my fault, letting me wonder what I did wrong. But that wasn't the worst part. He said, "I need to tell you this because I don't know what to do. Cassie doesn't want me." She laughed when I asked her out. She said I was a piece of trash and told me to never speak to her again. I thought she'd be happy I was single, but she said I was pathetic for dumping my girlfriend of 9 years just to chase her. She told everyone at work what I did. Now nobody respects me. He looked at me with these desperate eyes. He said, "I just wanted you to know the truth. I thought maybe you'd understand. Maybe you'd forgive me. I made a mistake. I was stupid." And then he reached across the table and said, "I think I still love you." I sat there for a long moment. The coffee shop was noisy, but I couldn't hear anything except the blood in my ears. I thought about all those nights I cried myself to sleep. All the therapy sessions where I blamed myself. All the times I wondered if I was too needy, too boring, too much. And he sat there telling me he only came back because his plan B fell through. I didn't scream. Didn't even raise my voice. I said, "Nate, you didn't come back to me because you love me. You came back because Cassie rejected you. I was your safety net. You thought you could throw me away and then pick me up when it didn't work out. That's not love, that's convenience." He started stammering, saying no, that wasn't true, that he'd been thinking about me the whole time, but I knew the truth. I'd seen the date on his first message to Cassie. It was 2 days after we broke up. He didn't waste any time. He didn't grieve, he just moved on to the next thing, and when that thing didn't work, he came crawling back. I stood up. I said, "I spent 9 years building you up. I worked 2 jobs so you could finish college. I held your hand through depression. I believed in you when nobody else did. And you repaid me by lying to my face and then treating me like a backup option. I deserve better than that. I deserve someone who sees me as a priority, not a fallback." He tried to follow me out of the coffee shop, but I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove home, and I didn't cry. For the first time in months, I didn't feel hollow. I felt angry, yeah, but I also felt free. He had blamed me for the breakup by saying I wasn't wife material. But the truth was he wasn't husband material. He was a coward who couldn't own his choices, so he made me the villain. And when his new plan failed, he tried to blame Cassie too, said she was shallow, that she led him on. Nobody was ever his fault. Some people spend their whole lives pointing fingers. They break your heart and then act like they're the victim. My ex-friend Sarah tried to destroy my marriage because she was lonely. My ex-boyfriend Nate tried to crawl back after his coworker rejected him. My sister-in-law Ella tried to smear my name because her ex chose me instead. They all had one thing in common: they refused to take responsibility. They wanted to control the narrative, make themselves look like the one who got wronged. But I'm done being the enemy in someone else's story. I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done letting people project their failures onto me. I'm still standing. I'm still here. And I'm not going to let any of them rewrite history. I know the truth, and that's enough. I said I knew the truth. But that wasn't the end of it with Sarah. She didn't just lie once. She doubled down. The next day after our talk in the gym parking lot, she started texting me nonstop. "Are you okay? I know it's hard to hear, but I'm just looking out for you." I didn't answer. I was still processing. I told my husband what she said, and he just stared at me, then laughed. Not a mean laugh, a relieved laugh. He said, "Babe, I was with you the whole day. You saw me make breakfast. You watched me put up the flood barriers. We napped together at noon." He pulled out his phone and showed me the photo he took of me and our son cuddled on the couch at exactly 11 a.m. with the time stamp. I felt a chill. Sarah had been so specific. She described the blonde woman's hair, the car, even the way my husband supposedly kissed her. But she never mentioned that I was in the car too. Why would she? Because I wasn't there. I was home. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to understand. I called our mutual friend Jen and asked if Sarah had said anything weird. Jen said, "Actually, she called me yesterday crying. She said she was worried about you, that your husband might be cheating, and she didn't know how to tell you." So Sarah was already building the narrative. I decided to meet her again, this time at a cafe near my office, the one where she knew I took breaks. I brought my laptop. I wanted to record the conversation, not legally, but just for my own sanity. I set it in my bag with the screen dimmed. When she walked in, she looked nervous but determined. She sat down and said, "Have you talked to him? Did he admit it?" I said, "No, because it didn't happen. I was home with him all day Wednesday. I have proof." Her face flickered just a second like a glitch, and then she recovered. She said, "Maybe I got the day wrong. Maybe it was Tuesday." I said, "Tuesday I was in the office until 2 p.m. Then I picked up our son from daycare. My husband was at a client meeting across town. I have his calendar. You want to check times?" She went quiet. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She said, "Even if you don't believe me, you should know he's capable of it. Men always cheat." And then she leaned in and whispered, "I saw him at a bar 6 months ago. He was flirting with a waitress. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you." I asked, "Which bar? What night?" She couldn't answer. She stammered that it was a weekend. She didn't remember. I said, "Sarah, you've known me since I was 11. You were a bridesmaid at my wedding. Why are you doing this?" She broke down. She started crying, loud, ugly crying right there in the cafe. People were staring. She said, "I'm lonely. You have a husband and a kid and you're always busy. I thought if you left him, we could go back to how it was. We used to hang out all the time. Now I don't even see you once a week." I felt a mix of pity and rage. She was willing to destroy my family because she missed our old sleepovers. She said she'd planned to tell me lies until I believed her. She said she even considered making a fake social media account to send me messages from a mistress. I stood up. I said, "I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, but you need help and I need space. Don't contact me again." I left her sitting there, still crying. I didn't block her right away because I wanted to see if she would escalate. She did. 3 days later, I got a call from a detective. Someone had filed a false report claiming my husband was involved in a hit and run the same Wednesday. Description of his car was exact, except the color was wrong. They said the tip came through an anonymous crime line. I knew it was Sarah. I had to give a statement, provide our alibi with time stamps and photos. The detective said they would trace the call. Sarah was arrested 2 weeks later for filing a false police report. She lost her job. She worked in admin at a local school, and they didn't want that kind of publicity. Her mom called me crying, begging me to drop the charges. I said no. She could have ruined my husband's life. She could have cost us custody if anyone believed her. I didn't scream. I just said she chose to lie. She has to face the consequences. I haven't spoken to her since. I still don't fully understand why she did it. Loneliness, jealousy, maybe she never grew up. But I learned something that day. Some people will burn down your house just to feel your warmth. That was the friend story, but the ex story, that one kept giving. After I walked out of the coffee shop, I thought it was over. Nate texted me 6 times that night. First a long apology, then anger, then a voicemail crying, then a photo of us from years ago. I didn't respond. The next morning, he showed up at my apartment. I didn't open the door. He stood outside for an hour calling my name. I called the non-emergency line and asked if they could send someone to tell him to leave. They did. He left, but he came back the next day, and the day after that, I started getting paranoid. I checked my windows twice before bed. I bought a Ring camera. My friends told me to file a restraining order. I didn't want to. I still remembered the good years. But then he started messaging my sister. He asked her to talk to me, tell him I was being unreasonable. She told him to get lost. He sent a letter to my workplace, handwritten 10 pages. My boss handed it to me with a worried look. I read it. He wrote about how he was going to kill himself if I didn't take him back. He said I was the only one who ever believed in him, and without me he was nothing. He blamed his coworker Cassie for leading him on, blamed his parents for not supporting him, blamed the economy for his job stress. Everyone was at fault except him. I forwarded the letter to the police. They issued a temporary protective order. He violated it by showing up at my church 3 weeks later. I was at Sunday service with a friend. I saw him standing at the back, his eyes on me. I slipped out the side door and called the police. They arrested him. At the hearing, he apologized and said he understood now. The judge ordered a no-contact order for 2 years. I haven't seen him since. But sometimes I get a notification from the court system that he's applied for early termination. And every time I write an objection, he can wait. He can learn to sit with the consequences of his choices. And then there's my sister-in-law Ella. That story didn't end when I told you about the wedding. Actually, the drama peaked at the engagement party. George proposed to me on a Tuesday night at our favorite restaurant. I said yes. We planned a small engagement party for the following Saturday at my parents' house. My brother David was supposed to come with Ella. I was nervous. I knew Ella was still bitter, but I hoped she would be civil for David's sake. I was wrong. She showed up late, already drunk. She walked into the living room where everyone was mingling and said loudly, "So you finally trapped him, huh? Took him away from me with your young pussy." My mom's jaw dropped. George went white. David tried to pull her arm, but she shook him off. She pointed at me and said, "You're a homewrecker. You knew we dated. You started dating him just to spite me." I said, "Ella, I didn't even know you two dated until months in, and you were already married to my brother when I met George. How could I have planned this?" She laughed. "Oh, please, you always wanted everything I had. You copied my hairstyle. You bought the same dress as me for my wedding shower. You're obsessed with me." None of that was true. I had never copied her. She was projecting so hard I almost felt sorry for her. But then she threw her wine glass at the wall. It shattered near my aunt. My dad told her to leave. She started screaming that I was a liar, that George was a drug addict who would relapse and ruin our family. George just stood there holding my hand. He didn't say a word. He knew anything he said would be twisted. My brother David was crying. He said, "Ella, please stop. Let's go home." She turned on him, called him a weak man who would never be as good as George. That was the moment something broke in him. He walked out. She followed, still yelling. The next morning, David called me and said he was moving out. He said he was done. He filed for divorce 2 weeks later, and that's when the family stepped in. My parents had a family meeting without Ella. They said she was no longer welcome at any family events. My other siblings agreed. Even David's friends told him they didn't want to see her again. She tried to send me a long email apologizing, but it was full of blame. "You provoked me. I was under a lot of stress. You should have told me sooner." I didn't reply. Sometimes I wonder if she realizes how much she lost. She had a husband who loved her, a family that accepted her. She threw it all away because she couldn't accept that George didn't want her. She blamed me, she blamed him, she blamed David. But the only person who tore her life apart was herself. And some people never learn that lesson, no matter how many times they get burned. I thought that was the end of it, but Nate wasn't done yet. After the protective order, I got a text from an unknown number. It was him using a friend's phone. He said, "I just need closure, please, one conversation." I didn't reply. I blocked the number. Then he started leaving voicemails from a burner app. I could hear him crying, then laughing, then crying again. He said, "I know I messed up, but you have to understand. Cassie, she led me on. She would flirt with me at work, touch my arm, laugh at my jokes. I thought she wanted me. I broke up with you for her, and then she said she never liked me like that. She said I was a creep. She told HR I was making her uncomfortable. I got written up. I lost my reputation. It's all her fault. And it's your fault too, because you were so perfect that I couldn't see straight." I deleted the messages, but they kept coming. He sent a letter to my parents' house. My mom called me shaken. She read it out loud. "You raised a selfish daughter. She broke my heart and now she's ruining my life. I hope she rots." My mom said, "Honey, this man is dangerous. You need to go to court." So I did. I got a permanent restraining order. At the hearing, he showed up in a suit. He tried to look remorseful. The judge asked him if he had anything to say. He stood up and said, "I made mistakes, but I loved her. I gave up everything for her. I just want her to know I'm sorry." The judge didn't buy it. He said, "You violated the order twice. You harassed her at work. You contacted her family. This is not love." The order was granted for 3 years. I watched him walk out of the courtroom, his shoulders slumped. Part of me felt bad. But then I remembered the 9 years I gave him, the 2 jobs, the therapy I paid for, the nights I held him while he cried about his parents. And he repaid me by dumping me with a speech about how I wasn't wife material. Chose a fantasy over reality, and when the fantasy rejected him, he blamed everyone else. He never once said, "I was wrong." He never owned it. He just kept pointing fingers. A few months later, I heard through a mutual friend that he had moved back in with his parents. He was working at a gas station. He started drinking. He posted on social media about how the world was against him. I scrolled past. I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt tired. But I also felt. I had spent so long trying to fix him that I forgot to fix myself. After the restraining order, I started therapy. I realized I had never been loved properly. I had been used. And that hit me harder than the breakup itself. And then there was the wedding proposal drama with Ella. That came out of nowhere. George and I had been engaged for 5 months. We were planning a small ceremony for the fall. My brother David was still in the middle of the divorce, so we tried to keep things low-key. But Ella wasn't done yet. She started posting cryptic things on Facebook. Some people never change, they just find new victims. Age gap relationships never last. Wait till he goes back to his old habits. She tagged me in none of them, but everyone knew who she meant. Then one day, George got a call from an unknown number. It was Ella. She said she needed to talk to him, that she had information about me that he needed to know. He told her to text him, and she did. She wrote that I had been cheating on him with an old coworker. She said she had screenshots. George knew it was a lie because I hadn't worked with that coworker in 2 years and we shared location. He said, "Ella, stop. You're making yourself look crazy." She flipped out. She called him a coward and said he would regret it. He blocked her, but she didn't stop there. She went to my parents' church. My mom is very active in the congregation. Ella walked in during coffee hour and started crying, telling people that I had stolen her husband and that George was a drug addict who was manipulating me. My mom grabbed her arm and escorted her out. The pastor told her not to come back. That was the final straw for my family. My dad called my brother David and said, "You need to handle this. She's attacking your sister in public." David said he would talk to her. He asked her to go to counseling with him. She refused. She said he was choosing his family over her. He said, "You are my family, but you're destroying us." She screamed that he was a mama's boy. He hung up. A week later, David called me crying. He said Ella had filed a false police report claiming that George had threatened her. The police came to our apartment. They asked George where he was on the date she claimed. He had bank receipts and a time-stamped photo from a hardware store. The case was dismissed, but the stress was immense. George had started having panic attacks again. He went to his therapist and increased his sessions. I was furious. I wanted to confront her, but George said, "No, that's what she wants. She wants us to react. We have to live well and let her burn herself out." So we did. We got married in a small courthouse ceremony with just our parents and siblings. David stood as George's best man. He was shaking, but he smiled. Afterward, we had dinner at a quiet restaurant. No drama, no Ella. She was served the divorce papers that same week. She tried to contest, but David had evidence of her harassment. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. She moved to another state, according to social media. She posts about starting over, about being a survivor. I don't follow her, but I heard she reached out to George's old friends trying to get dirt on him. No one responded. She had burned every bridge. I still don't understand why she did it. Maybe she couldn't stand that George changed for me and not for her. Maybe she thought if she couldn't have him, no one could. But the funny thing is, George didn't change for me. He changed for himself. I just happened to be there when he was ready. And Ella, she was there when he wasn't ready. She tried to force him and he ran. She blamed me, she blamed George, she blamed David, she blamed the world. But the truth is, she was the common denominator in every failed relationship she had. And until she realizes that, she'll keep repeating the same pattern. I hope she gets help, but I'm not holding my breath. Some people just can't admit when they're wrong, and those are the ones who end up alone, wondering why everyone leaves. I thought my best friend was my ride or die, but then she tried to sabotage my marriage. I met Sarah when I was 11 years old. My family had just moved to a new country and my soon-to-be sister-in-law introduced us. We became inseparable. Through middle school, high school, college, and into adulthood, she was the person I called first. We shared everything, or so I thought. I married my husband when I was 26. He and I had known each other since we were kids too. We all grew up together in that same small immigrant community. Sarah was my maid of honor. She cried during the vows. She threw me a bachelorette party. She held my hand when I gave birth to my son. So when she told me she saw my husband cheating, I didn't want to believe it, but I also couldn't ignore it. My schedule was pretty predictable. I worked in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break around 11. Sometimes I'd walk 5 minutes to my husband's office and have second breakfast with him. Sometimes I'd go to a cafe. Sarah knew my routine because we texted every day. She'd ask what I was doing and I'd tell her. That's why what happened next was so confusing. That Tuesday night, there was a red alert about flooding the next day. My work trip to another city got canceled. I stayed home with my 2-year-old son. My husband left at 6 in the morning to close up his business and set up flood barriers. By 7:30, he was back. We made breakfast together. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We didn't go out at all that day or the next day. We were home the whole time. On Friday, the rain stopped. Saturday morning, Sarah and I went to our usual gym class. Afterward, she pulled me aside and said we needed to talk in private. We sat in my car. She looked serious, almost pale. She said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I froze, my mind went blank. Then I remembered. Wednesday, I was home. My husband was home. We were making pancakes at 11 in the morning. I asked her, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She nodded. 3 times I asked, 3 times she confirmed. She even described the woman, a gorgeous blonde like a Barbie doll. She said my husband had his arm around her and they were kissing in a parking lot. I asked, "Did you take a picture?" She said no, she was too shocked. I asked, "What time was it?" She said around 11. I asked, "Was it during the red alert?" She said yes, it was pouring. I felt my stomach drop. Not because I believed her, but because I realized she was lying. I had the evidence, I had the receipts, and she didn't know. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, Sarah, I was home on Wednesday. My husband was home. We didn't leave the house. The red alert had everything closed. Her face changed. She got defensive. She said, maybe it was another day. Maybe I got the day wrong. I said, you confirmed it was Wednesday 3 times. You gave me a specific time. You described the woman. You had to be lying. She started backtracking. She said, I saw what I saw. Maybe you just don't want to believe it. I pulled out my phone. I showed her the text messages from my husband from Wednesday morning. He sent me a photo of our son covered in pancake batter. The timestamp was 10:45. Then I showed her the weather alert cancellation email from my boss. Sent at 9 p.m. Tuesday. She stared at the screen. Then she said, you didn't tell me you were home. You said you were traveling. That was when everything changed. I realized she was blaming me. She was saying if I had updated her on my plans, she wouldn't have made a false accusation. I said, I texted you home safe on Wednesday at 3 p.m. You asked if I was home from my trip. I said yes. She said, that was vague. You could have meant from something else. I didn't know what to say. How do you argue with someone who rewrites reality? I just got out of the car and walked away. I told my husband what happened that night. He was furious. He wanted to confront her. I said no. I wanted to give her a chance to apologize. I called her the next day. She answered and immediately started talking about how stressed she was. She said she had been seeing a therapist and her anxiety was through the roof. She said she thought she was protecting me. She said, you're my best friend. I couldn't stand the thought of him cheating on you. I must have imagined it because I was so scared. I didn't believe her. I asked, why would you imagine a whole description, a parking lot, a blonde woman, the time, the day? She got quiet. Then she said, maybe I saw a couple that looked like you too. My brain filled in the gaps. I told her that was a pretty big gap. She started crying. She said, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please don't end our friendship over this. I didn't end it right away, but I kept her at arm's length. I stopped telling her my schedule. I stopped inviting her over. She noticed. She texted me about 3 weeks later. She said, I know you're mad, but I already apologized. What more do you want? I told her I wanted her to admit that she deliberately lied. She said, I didn't lie. I made a mistake. There's a difference. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't sorry for accusing my husband. She was sorry she got caught. She blamed the weather. She blamed her anxiety. She blamed my vague text message. She blamed everything except herself. So I told her I needed space. She didn't take it well. She told mutual friends that I was being unreasonable, that I was choosing my husband over our 20-year friendship. Some of them took her side. They said, she was just trying to look out for you. You're being harsh. But I knew the truth. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. A mistake is accidentally breaking a plate. This was not a mistake. This was a targeted attempt to destroy my marriage. Maybe she wanted more time with me. Maybe she was jealous of my family. Maybe she wanted me single and miserable like her. I'll never know, but I know she blamed me for everything that happened afterward. When I stopped answering her calls, she left a voicemail saying, you're ruining our friendship because you can't handle the truth. The truth is she tried to ruin my life, and when it backfired, she played the victim. I haven't spoken to her in 6 months. I heard through a friend that she's telling people I ghosted her for no reason. She says I'm the one who changed. Maybe I did. I became less trusting. I became more protective of my family, but I also became free. I don't have to watch my back anymore. I don't have to wonder if her sweet texts hide a knife. I lost a best friend, but I gained clarity. Some people can't accept responsibility. They rewrite history so they're always the hero. And the only way to win is to walk away.